Have you ever wondered what Radagast the Brown is doing when the world isn't watching him? Is he whispering to hedgehogs beneath the roots of Mirkwood, or humming lullabies to owls who have forgotten how to sleep? You imagine him tonight, wrapped in a cloak the color of moss and pipe smoke, walking through the silver fog curling over the Anduin, where the stars shimmer faintly above Rivendell's high eaves, and echoes still hum deep within Khazad-dûm's hollow bones. There's something about him, about all those quiet souls of Middle-earth who do their part in silence and are remembered only in songs sung by those who never met them. It makes you think of another kind of courage, one without trumpets or banners. You probably wouldn't survive this sort of story. It's too gentle, too unassuming, the kind of tale that grows underfoot while you're looking at the mountains. Because tonight, it isn't about kings or battles or rings of power. It's about the gardener who saved the world simply by refusing to let hope die. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. I'm really curious. From which part of the world are you watching this video? Write your country in the comments. Let's see how far this little story has traveled. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together as mist settles over the fields of the Shire and the scent of fresh earth begins to rise like memory itself. Somewhere beyond the rolling hills, a small hobbit hums a tune about potatoes and poetry, unaware that his name will one day be spoken beside legends. You walk with him now, Samwise Gamgee, son of Hamfast, barefoot in the cool dew of Hobbiton's dawn, the faint smoke from chimneys curling into the pale sky like shy greetings. His hands are calloused from turning the soil, not from sword hilt or shield, but from coaxing stubborn roots into bloom. You can almost feel it, the rough comfort of earth under his fingernails, the way the smell of wet grass lingers like a promise. His gaffer always said that talking to plants was foolishness, but Sam never stopped doing it. He swore that the marigolds grew straighter when you told them about elves. And that's where it all began, really, with stories. Sam's heart was a patchwork of every wandering tale he'd overheard at the Green Dragon, of shimmering stars above the Brandywine, of voices in the wind that sounded just elvish enough to make him pause with his spade mid-turn. Scholars still debate whether the elves truly passed near Hobbiton in those years, or if it was only the wind singing in the hedges. But for Sam, it was real enough to keep him awake at night, watching constellations reflected in the water trough behind Bag End. There's something delightfully ironic about a hobbit who dreams of distant lands while fussing about potato rows, and yet, that contradiction is what makes him feel so alive. One forgotten tidbit tucked into the lore, Sam once attempted to brew his own ale with rose petals for an elvish fragrance. It went disastrously wrong. The gaffer claimed it smelled like damp laundry. Still, the boy kept experimenting because Sam believed beauty was worth a little foolishness. And perhaps that's the first act of heroism no one writes songs about. To see wonder in ordinary things, to believe in faraway stars while standing ankle-deep in mud. You stand beside Samwise that morning when the world turns just slightly toward destiny. The air over Hobbiton cool and tender, the sky a watercolor of pale blue and gold, and the faint sound of a kettle clinking in the distance as if the Shire itself sighs in contentment, unaware that two hobbits are about to disturb its eternal peace. Sam's heart pounds like a small drum inside a gardener's chest as Frodo tucks the ring deep into his pocket, and the road ahead shimmers with the kind of adventure Sam has only ever dared to whisper about while pruning roses. Leaving comfort, after all, isn't in a hobbit's nature. Their bravery is a kind of resistance against comfort itself, a rebellion against second breakfasts and feather beds. Tolkien once described hobbits as rustic and shy of machines, but Sam's mind whirs tonight like one of Saruman's wheels, his thoughts turning faster than he can walk. He's packed far too much bread, not enough socks, and one small frying pan which he refuses to leave behind, claiming that heroes may eat lembas, but decent folk still need stew. There's humor in that, gentle and earthy, the kind that tugs you closer to him with every muttered word. It's said that Tolkien modeled Sam's plain wisdom after the Batmen of World War I, The ordinary soldiers who quietly served officers, loyal to the point of poetry. And it fits, doesn't it? Sam's courage isn't cinematic, it's domestic. He looks back at number 3 Bagshot Row, where the ivy still curls over the window, and feels the ache of a place he loves too much to ever abandon. One obscure bit of lore tells us that Sam once hid a small wooden carving of an elm tree in his pack. His bit of home, he called it, believed to be a charm for safe passage among gardeners. Scholars still debate whether hobbits had any genuine magic, or if their faith in small tokens simply made magic happen around them. As the mist lifts over Bywater, Sam's feet take that first true step away from the known world. He doesn't know that one day he'll climb the very slopes of doom itself. All he knows is that Frodo will need him, and someone must carry the rope. And that's how legends begin in Middle-earth. Not with thunder, but with a hobbit quietly locking his door and saying, "Right then, I'm coming too." By the time you and Sam reach the old forest, the air feels alive with memory. Green twilight filtering through twisted branches, leaves whispering like gossiping ghosts, and the faint hum of something ancient watching from the shadows. The Shire's laughter fades behind you, replaced by the kind of silence that feels older than fear. Frodo steps forward cautiously, but it's Sam who mutters, "There's queer things here, Mr. Frodo, and no mistake." His voice half amusement, half warning. The ground smells of rain and rot and secrets. You can almost hear the pulse of Middle-earth itself through the roots, each thud of your own heart echoing the rhythm of unseen life. Somewhere in the dim, wet light, Tom Bombadil is singing, a melody too strange to fit neatly into words. Scholars have long debated who or what Bombadil truly was, Maya, Vala, or something even older, a remnant of the world before the shaping of Arda. But Sam, wiping his muddy hands on his trousers, doesn't care much for theology. "As long as he keeps the mushrooms growing and the trees quiet, that's enough for me," he might have said, with that blunt, homespun humor that keeps darkness from sinking its teeth too deep. And yet, even in the light of Tom's songs, the shadows linger. You watch Sam watching Frodo, his loyalty already taking root like ivy, winding around the edges of fear. A lesser-known tidbit from the lore tells of a short-lived hobbit superstition that singing beneath willow trees brings bad luck. Sam hums anyway, perhaps as defiance, perhaps as comfort. He doesn't yet know that music, his own quiet, untrained voice, will one day be what keeps despair at bay. When the barrow-whites stir and the air turns cold enough to sting, it's Sam's small courage that steadies Frodo's trembling hands, though no one will ever write that down. Tolkien himself once mused in a letter that the smallest acts of bravery are the most dangerous to forget, and there, beneath the ancient trees, that thought breathes to life. As Bombadil's laughter fades into the mist, Sam shoulders his pack, squinting ahead. "Well, that's enough singing for one night," he mutters, tripping over a root, "and if I see another talking tree, I'll ask it for firewood." You can't help but laugh softly, because even in the heart of old magic, the gardener from Hobbiton still knows how to make the dark a little less frightening. You descend with Sam into the dark veins of Middle-earth, where the walls glimmer faintly with veins of mithril, and the echo of dwarven hammers still hums like ghosts of industry. The air is thick, mineral, and ancient, and even the sound of your breath feels disrespectful here. Frodo's light flickers weakly ahead, but it's Sam's small, practical voice that breaks the tension. "I don't like the look of this, Mr. Frodo. Not one bit, and I'll bet even the rocks are glaring at us." There's humor in it, cracked but comforting, the kind that reminds you that courage doesn't always sound noble. It often sounds irritated. Somewhere above, Gandalf's staff glows, casting a pale halo over the company, and Sam stares at it like a man trying to remember sunlight. You can almost hear his thoughts, that he should have packed extra candles, maybe a lantern or two, or at least some salt for those slimy dinners. The irony, of course, is that this small hobbit who fears the dark will soon be the light-bearer when all else fails. Tolkien noted in one of his letters that Moria's name, Khazad-dûm, still held echoes of divine craftsmanship, a reverence toward stone as art rather than obstacle. Sam doesn't know this. To him, it's just cold, endless corridors and the smell of bat droppings. And yet, in this tomb of kings, he moves as if he belongs, steady, careful, carrying Frodo's hope like a candle cupped against the wind. There's an obscure tidbit buried deep in the appendices. Sam was said to have carried a small pouch of Shire soil sewn into the hem of his cloak during the journey. Not a gift of Galadriel's, this was earlier his own doing. Earth from home to smell when fear grew too thick. Scholars debate whether Tolkien intended this to symbolize grounding, the mortal anchor against the ring's seduction, or if it was simply Sam being Sam, a hobbit's practicality disguised as faith. Down here, you can feel both meanings breathing in the dark. The Fellowship's torches flicker against carvings of Durin's face, and Sam pauses, whispering, "Imagine living down here with no garden to dig and no potatoes to fry." Even Gimli laughs, briefly breaking the stillness, though his eyes glisten with something unspoken. Then the drums begin. Doom, doom. The sound rolls through the caverns like thunder through bone. Frodo freezes, and you see it. The quick glance Sam gives him, half fear, half promise. He grips the frying pan tighter, the same way warriors hold shields. "If anything comes through that door," he mutters, "I'll make sure it leaves dented." It's absurd and beautiful, the humor of the hopeless, the kind Tolkien always wrapped in reverence. Later, when Gandalf falls into shadow and the company stumbles into sunlight again, it is Sam who first looks back into Moria's black mouth and whispers, "Thank you, sir." No one hears it but the stone. Scholars have argued for decades about what Moria represents: the decay of pride, the peril of progress, the echo of Morgoth's curse through the ages. But perhaps, through Sam's eyes, it's simpler. It's the lesson that courage grows best where sunlight never reaches. The ancient lamps may have gone out, the dwarves' song silenced by flame and greed, but somewhere in that abyss, a hobbit's small heartbeat carried the rhythm of life itself. He doesn't write poems about it. He just keeps walking, muttering about the waste of good mushrooms in a place like this. And when at last they step into the bright glare of the Dimrill Dale, you can almost feel the world exhale through him, a deep, shaking sigh of survival. "If that's what's under mountains," he says, blinking at the light, "then I'll take the sky. Thank you kindly." He doesn't yet realize that the hardest climbs still lie ahead, that one day he'll face a mountain that burns not with stone, but with destiny. But for now, as the wind brushes his face and the memory of the dark recedes, you sense it, the faint, steady courage of Samwise Gamgee, glowing like a coal that refuses to die out. When you step into Lothlorien, it's as if the air itself forgets how to age. The light changes, soft, liquid, and eternal, and Samwise stops dead in his tracks, eyes wide, mouth slightly open, clutching his pack like it's the only real thing left in this dream. The trees rise impossibly high, silver trunks veined with gold, leaves that shimmer even in the stillness. You can smell faint water and distant honey, the scent of some memory that isn't yours but feels like home. Sam whispers, "Now there's a bit of proper elvishness, that is," and his voice is caught between awe and the kind of worry a hobbit feels when confronted with too much beauty. How to keep it, how to water it, how to make sure it doesn't wilt. Frodo and the others move ahead, but Sam lingers, fingertips brushing a root that seems to hum back, and for the first time since leaving the Shire, he's quiet, without fear. Tolkien once wrote that Lorien is what the world would be if sin had never touched it, and maybe that's why Sam feels so small here, not because he's unworthy, but because he can sense, in some gardener's intuition, that nothing he could ever grow would match this golden perfection. Yet he's not jealous. He's humbled, inspired, and just a little concerned about whether elves prune. There's an obscure tidbit tucked into the lore of Galadriel's gifts. Most readers remember the file she gives Frodo, the bow for Legolas, and the hair for Gimli. But few recall that when Sam received his small box of soil from her garden, Galadriel added something unrecorded in Frodo's telling, one silent blessing in Quenya for he who will remember to heal the world. Some scholars argue that this addition was Tolkien's private note of Sam's spiritual inheritance, linking him symbolically to Yavanna, the giver of fruits. Others dismiss it as apocryphal, a fan's embellishment lost in footnotes. But here, in this soft twilight, you can feel its truth. The way Sam kneels instinctively, scooping a handful of golden leaves and murmuring, "This'd make fine compost, if only I had the heart to spoil it." His humor, as always, is the grounding force in a place that could make mortal hearts forget the weight of the world. Frodo speaks with Galadriel in tones that sound like poetry wrapped in caution, while Sam stands awkwardly in the background, unsure whether to bow or apologize for existing. When she turns her gaze upon him, her eyes seem to see every weed he's ever pulled, every kindness done in secret. "Do not be ashamed, Master Samwise," she says softly, "for the smallest hands may hold the greatest gifts." Sam blushes crimson, mutters something about not meaning any harm by coming along, and tries to hide behind Frodo. Later that night, as they rest by the mirror's edge, he gazes into the water. The surface ripples, showing flashes of home. Number 3 Bagshot Row, his gaffer by the hearth, rosy cotton hanging laundry in the wind. But there's another image too, a shire covered in ash, barren and lifeless. He gasps, heart pounding. "That's not real, is it?" Frodo doesn't answer. "You know, though, that this vision plants a seed of its own, the determination to bring green things back, to make beauty bloom again after ruin. It's ironic, isn't it, that in the one place untouched by decay, Sam first learns what devastation could look like." Scholars still debate the meaning of Sam's gift of soil. Was it a symbol of renewal, a promise that life persists beyond war, or Tolkien's quiet theological echo of grace, the idea that creation itself longs to be restored by love? Maybe it's all of them. You watch him cradle that box like something sacred, the same way he once held Frodo's canteen or a half-burnt pan. He doesn't think in symbols, he thinks in seasons. To Sam, Galadriel's gift is a gardening problem waiting to be solved. And yet, beneath that simplicity lies a truth too vast for even elves to measure, that sometimes the world is saved not by swords, but by soil. Before they leave, Sam sneaks one more look at the golden leaves falling around him. He pockets one when no one's looking, whispering, "For Rosie, if I make it back." You smile because you know he will, and though he doesn't understand it yet, that single leaf will outlast empires, carried home, planted in love, watered by memory. The Fellowship departs Lothlorien under starlight, their boats gliding silently through the silver current. Sam looks back once, the glow of Caris Galadon fading like the end of a song, and sighs, "Beautiful, but a bit too clean for my liking." No earth under your nails in a place like that. It's a small jest, but in it lies the whole spirit of the Shire. Earthy, honest, unbroken. You realize then that Samwise Gamgee, for all his plainness, has just carried a fragment of paradise in his pocket, and he'll carry it long after the elves are gone. By the time you reach the dead marshes, the golden glow of Lorien feels like something dreamt in another life. The light here is sickly, a gray-green pallor that turns every reflection into a ghost. Frodo walks ahead, his steps unsteady, eyes hollow with something the ring is teaching him that you wish he'd never learn. But Samwise, he's still solid, still breathing, still muttering under his breath about the state of the scenery. "Even the potatoes look haunted here," he says, kicking a stone into the muck, and you can't help but smile through the dread. It's such a small, ridiculous statement, yet it carries the same function as a prayer. The world around you smells of sulfur and decay. The air buzzes with unseen whispers. Tolkien once described this place as the residue of ancient wars, where sorrow and stench lie married forever, and you can feel that history pressed down on you like a weight of invisible bones. The faces beneath the water, men, elves, orcs, all flicker under the surface like candle flames drowning in oil. Frodo stares too long, entranced. Sam doesn't. He grips his friend's wrist and yanks him back with a sharp, "Don't look, Mr. Frodo. That's no place for eyes that still want to see daylight." He doesn't quote prophecy or poetry, he just acts, and in doing so, saves him from a madness that can't be undone. There's an obscure tidbit from the history of Middle-earth drafts that says Sam was the first to smell Gollum before he saw him. Tolkien notes it almost like a joke, calling it the gardener's gift of nose over wit. But imagine that. His instincts honed not by war, but by compost and spring breezes, detecting corruption before it can hiss. When Gollum finally slithers into view, Sam's first impulse is to wallop him with a frying pan, an act that scholars have debated endlessly. Was it comedy or symbolic defiance, the meek smiting the monstrous with the tools of nurture? You might lean toward both. His suspicion toward Gollum never fully fades, though sometimes it softens into pity. He sees in the creature something uncomfortably familiar, the smallness of wanting, the ache of loneliness. "I don't trust him, Mr. Frodo," he mutters, eyes narrowed. "But I suppose even worms have their uses." It's that dry humor again, the Shire's defense against despair, sharper than any sword. The marsh stretches endlessly, a graveyard that pretends to be a swamp. Your boots squelch with each step, and you can almost feel Sam's thoughts in the rhythm of the movement. Home, food, rest, Rosie, sunrise, water, hope. He lists them silently like prayer beads, and the listing itself becomes a kind of endurance. Frodo weakens, Gollum schemes, and Sam. He carries the conversation as though words alone can keep the dark from noticing them. "I could fry up those taters if we had some," he says wistfully, staring into a small fire that offers no warmth. Frodo only nods, his mind far away. Sam adds softly, "Boil 'em, mash 'em, stick 'em in a stew." And you can hear the smallest laugh escape his own throat. It's absurd, inappropriate, perfect. In a land where laughter should die, it sprouts instead, stubborn as clover between stones. There's a scholarly debate, whispered among Tolkien historians, about whether Sam's humor is meant as divine grace, the eucatastrophe of spirit that the author described, or simply human habit clinging to meaning. You think it's both. Each small jest keeps the ring from swallowing another soul. When Frodo's light begins to flicker, Sam becomes it, not in grand speeches, but in simple acts. Tending a cut, mending a strap, reminding him to drink water, pressing food into his hands when he forgets to eat. "We're still in one piece, and that's more than most can say," he says at dawn, voice raspy, half asleep. A lesser-known fact hides in a letter Tolkien wrote to a fan in 1957. He confessed that Sam represents the most heroic character of all, precisely because he does not perceive himself as heroic. You see that now, plain as sunrise. He's not carrying destiny, he's carrying a friend. In the marsh, you can feel the toll of that simplicity. It's heavy because it's real. No one sings of steadfastness when it's happening. It only becomes legend in hindsight. Sam's eyes are gritty, his back aches, his heart strains. Yet, when Frodo falters, Sam steadies him, saying quietly, "I can't see the end of it, but I can see you, Mr. Frodo, and that's enough." As they finally crawl out of the marshes, Gollum pointing east toward the looming peaks of the Black Land, Sam turns once more toward the fading horizon. The wind smells faintly of smoke, but he catches, somehow, a note of earth beneath it. Maybe imagination, maybe faith. He exhales, long and low, whispering, "Not much for gardens, this place, but I reckon something could grow here, given a chance." You realize then what makes him different from all other heroes. They fight for glory, he fights for growth. Even in Mordor's shadow, his soul is still planting. And though he doesn't know it, that stubborn hope will bloom again, long after the fires are out and songs forget the sound of his name. The closer you draw to Mordor, the smaller the world becomes. Narrow paths, thin air, and silence broken only by the sound of two pairs of weary feet. Samwise walks a step behind Frodo now, not because he's slower, but because he's measuring every breath against Frodo's faltering rhythm, adjusting quietly like a man tending a fragile flame in the wind. You can feel the exhaustion in his bones, that dull ache between loyalty and fear, and yet he never once allows it to turn into complaint. If this is what comes of walking too far from home, I'll write to the mayor about longer fences, he mutters, trying to lighten the mood. And Frodo almost smiles. Almost. The ring's pull has grown unbearable now. It gleams faintly through the cloth, whispering, writhing, waiting. Tolkien once wrote that Sam was the most unfallen of mortals, and it shows here. The ring barely touches him. He's tempted not by power or vengeance, but by the foolish dream that maybe, just maybe, he could throw it away and everything would go back to normal. That's his flaw, and his strength, the belief that goodness can undo evil by sheer stubbornness. Scholars still debate whether Tolkien meant Sam to embody agape, the selfless love that endures without reward, or whether he was simply the working-class heart of the tale, the ordinary man holding the line against despair. But when you watch him kneel beside Frodo in the dust, offering water like it's wine, you stop caring about theories. What matters is the touch, gentle, patient, real. There's an obscure little note in the appendices of The Lord of the Rings that says Sam carried a length of elvish rope given to him by the Lady of Lorien. Most recall the scene where it slips free from a cliff as if it knew it was needed no more. But few notice what comes after. Sam quietly coils it again and keeps it close, muttering that, "You never know when rope will come in handy." It's both practical and symbolic. The rope as trust, as connection, as the unseen thread that binds two souls through darkness. Some scholars have proposed that the rope itself was enchanted with the light of Valinor, representing faith made tangible. Others insist that its power lay entirely in Sam's belief that it could help. Either way, when Frodo's strength wanes, that rope is what keeps them both from falling, not the elvish light or the sword of Westernesse, but a gardener's knot tied by steady hands. The nights grow colder, sharper, the stars seem dimmer, or maybe it's the ash drifting from Orodruin. Sam still tries to find humor in scraps. "I wonder if the stars up there ever get tired of watching us stumble," he says one night, poking at a dying fire. "If I were a star, I'd close my eyes by now." Frodo doesn't laugh, but his shoulders ease just a little. It's enough. Even Gollum, lurking nearby, softens at times under Sam's relentless humanity. There's a moment, lost to the film and nearly to the text, where Sam catches Gollum talking to his reflection in a puddle, arguing over fish bones and forgiveness. Instead of interrupting, Sam turns away, giving him privacy. Compassion disguised as indifference. Only Sam could manage that. Tolkien himself hinted that Sam's greatest act of mercy was not pity for Gollum, but restraint. The decision not to become cruel in a cruel land. You feel the air grow heavier as they enter Ithilien, where the world briefly remembers how to be alive. The scent of thyme and wild onion drifts from the underbrush, and Sam's instincts surge like spring. He crouches, gathering herbs with reverence. "Now that's more like it," he whispers, plucking a sprig of athelas and grinning. "If we're doomed, at least we'll smell decent doing it." The scene feels absurdly normal, a man cooking in the apocalypse. But that's the point. The stew he makes that night, laced with a hint of hope and mischief, is one of the last real meals before Mordor. "Potatoes," he says softly, savoring the word like a prayer. In that simple act, boiling, mashing, stirring, he reclaims a little piece of the Shire, of himself. Scholars call it the theology of small acts, the idea that moral restoration happens through simple care, food, kindness, loyalty. For Sam, these aren't symbols. They're survival. But even as he cooks, his eyes keep flicking toward Frodo, who grows quieter, thinner, haunted. There's a terrible beauty in their symmetry. Frodo descending into the ring's madness, Sam ascending into his full humanity. The burden shifts invisibly between them, an unspoken exchange of strength. Tolkien called this the fellowship of two, the final and purest form of companionship, a bond so absolute that even despair bends before it. And yet, Sam never calls it love. He'd likely blush if you said so. To him, it's duty, friendship, decency. He'd never admit that he's walking through hell for someone else's salvation. "Come on, Mr. Frodo," he says again and again, voice rough from thirst. One more hill, and then we'll see the other side. But there is no other side. Not yet. As dawn breaks, a sliver of red light bleeding over the Ephel Duath, Frodo stumbles. Sam catches him before he hits the ground, holding him close. I can't carry it for you, he whispers, but I can carry you. The words haven't been said yet. They'll come later on the mountain. But the vow begins here, unspoken. It's in the way he steadies Frodo's heartbeat with his own, the way he refuses to let him fall. The entire moral weight of Middle-earth condenses into that gesture. One man lifting another because it's the only thing left to do. He doesn't think of songs or stories or the eyes of the Valar. He just thinks of the gaffer's voice saying, "Do what's right, Sam lad, and don't make a fuss about it." That's what he's doing now, just not making a fuss while quietly saving the world. As the night settles again, you notice the rope coiled at his side, glinting faintly in the starlight like a promise. It isn't just rope, it's memory, it's loyalty, it's every thread of love that has ever refused to snap. And you understand why Tolkien once wrote that, in the end, Sam's heart was the true heart of the tale. You see it beating here, steady and defiant, beneath layers of exhaustion and dirt. When the wind howls through the cliffs, Sam simply mutters, "You'll have to do better than that if you mean to scare me." It's a joke, yes, but also a challenge, to the dark, to despair, to any power that dares believe hope can be broken. You realize then that what Sam carries isn't just Frodo, or rope, or soil, it's the unkillable seed of renewal itself. By now, the land itself seems to have given up on being alive. The rocks are scorched, the wind smells of iron, and even the shadows look weary from clinging to the ground. Samwise walks through it all with his head down, every step measured like a heartbeat, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from exhaustion. Frodo can barely stand. His breath comes in short, dry gasps, each one a plea to keep moving. You can see how small they look against the vast ruin of Mordor, two specks of stubbornness trudging through a dead god's memory. There's no green left, no birdsong, no sound but the crunch of ash underfoot. And still, Sam talks. "Well, this is cheerful," he mutters, squinting at the volcanic horizon. "I've had worse gardens, but not by much. The humor is thin and cracked, but it's there, a single thread of warmth woven through despair." Tolkien once wrote that, "In the end, the shadow is only a small and passing thing," and here you understand what he meant, because the light that remains is not in the sky, but in this hobbit's unbreakable will. Scholars have long debated what Tolkien intended when he wrote Sam's great act, when he lifts Frodo onto his shoulders upon the slopes of Mount Doom. Was it the ultimate symbol of friendship transcending fate, or an echo of Christ bearing the world's burden? Some see it as literary archetype, others as a soldier's memory of comrades dragging one another through mud and death. Tolkien, who had seen the trenches of the Somme, wrote that Sam was the most nearly heroic character in the book, and as you watch him bend beneath Frodo's weight, you believe it. His back strains, his breath shudders, but his voice remains steady. "Come on, Mr. Frodo. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you." There's nothing dramatic in the way he says it. No swelling music, no divine glow, just raw, quiet truth. It's the kind of moment that changes the definition of heroism forever. There's a forgotten note in one of Tolkien's drafts that hints that Sam, not Frodo, was originally meant to destroy the ring. The idea was later abandoned, but its shadow lingers here. You can almost see it in the way the ring's pull trembles between them, recognizing perhaps that Sam's heart is the one it cannot corrupt. He doesn't lust for it. He pities it, as he pities all broken things. That's his secret power, empathy without illusion. He doesn't imagine himself a savior. He just refuses to stop caring. And it's that refusal, the quiet rebellion against despair, that makes him stronger than kings. Halfway up the mountain, the ground gives way under their feet. Frodo slips, sliding down a ridge of black ash. Sam lunges after him, scraping his hands raw, catching him at the last moment. The two tumble together, coughing, panting, silent. Then Sam, wheezing, lets out a breathless chuckle. "Well, at least we're getting downhill practice for the way back." Frodo almost laughs, but it's hollow. The ring has stolen his voice, his soul flickering like a candle at its end. Sam stares at him, eyes wide with grief and defiance. "Don't you leave me here, Mr. Frodo," he whispers. "Don't you go where I can't follow." Those words, simple as a prayer, cut deeper than any prophecy. They're not about destiny, they're about devotion, about refusing to let love die quietly. The wind howls around them, carrying the roar of Mount Doom like the breath of a furnace. The air burns to breathe, but Sam doesn't stop. His thoughts flicker through memory. Rosie's laugh, the gaffer's scolding, the taste of ale, the feel of tilled earth beneath his feet, each one a reason to keep walking. There's a strange beauty in this suffering, how the ordinary becomes sacred when carried to its end. Tolkien hinted at it through the concept of subcreation, that mortals mirror divine creation when they persist in making meaning even in ruin. Sam embodies that perfectly. Every step he takes up the mountain is an act of creation, a defiance of entropy. One obscure tidbit from Tolkien's notes describes the dust of Orodruin as containing the ash of unmade things, creations destroyed by the fall Morgoth, ideas that never came to be. When Sam's boot sinks into it, you realize he's literally walking through the remains of lost possibilities. And still, he chooses to make one more. Hope. The symbolism almost writes itself. Where the great failed, the humble endures. "There's nothing left but forward," he says quietly, though Frodo no longer answers. So he keeps talking, to himself, to the air, to the ghosts. "We'll have a bit of a rest once this is done," he mutters. "Tea, bread, and maybe some strawberries. You'll see." That small promise becomes a spell strong enough to carry them higher. When the fires finally glow red beneath the clouds, and Frodo collapses completely, Sam gathers him like a child and hauls him upward. His muscles tremble, his lungs burn, but he refuses to let go. The air itself seems to scream, the ring's song rising into frenzy, and you wonder how any mortal could withstand it. And then you understand. Sam isn't fighting evil with power, he's fighting it with love. Simple, exhausted, ridiculous love. The kind that plants flowers on graves and still expects them to bloom. That's what makes the mountain tremble. Not magic, not might, but compassion refusing to break. Tolkien's scholars call this eucatastrophe, the sudden turn from tragedy to grace, and you feel it gathering, unseen but inevitable. Sam doesn't know that within minutes the world will change. He doesn't know that songs will one day call him the true hero of the tale. He only knows that Frodo needs one more step, and that he will take it for him if it kills him. When they finally reach the ledge before the cracks of doom, the world roars in fury, and Sam collapses beside his friend, laughing weakly. "Well, Mr. Frodo," he whispers, "I reckon this is as far as roads go." And maybe it is. But in that laugh, in that weary, unbreakable laugh, Middle-earth itself exhales. Because the shadow, after all, was only ever a passing thing, and this small light, carried by a gardener's hands, has already outshone it. When the fires fade and the mountain falls silent, it is as if the whole world exhales through ash. You open your eyes to dawn, a thin, trembling light that doesn't quite know what to do with itself after so much darkness. Samwise wakes too, sore in every bone, his hands blistered, his voice cracked, his soul scraped raw and shining beneath the soot. The air smells of burnt stone and new beginnings. Frodo lies beside him, pale but breathing, the ring gone, its whisper vanished into a quiet that feels almost holy. "It's over," Sam murmurs, not believing it yet. And then, because words are too small for the moment, he simply weeps. Not for victory, not for glory, but for relief, for the small, ordinary mercy of being alive. The eagles come like a dream, great shadows gliding through the dawn, and when they lift him from the ash, Sam clutches Frodo's hand, whispering, "Don't you let go, Mr. Frodo. Not now." The wind rushes past, fierce and clean, carrying them back to the world of green things. Weeks later, when he wakes in Ithilion's soft light, he finds himself surrounded by color again. Roses, thyme, lilies, all blooming as if defying memory itself. Gandalf smiles and Sam gasps, "Gandalf! I thought you were dead." The wizard laughs, a sound like rivers breaking ice. "And so I was, my dear Sam. But not forever." It's a moment both comic and divine, and Sam's face breaks into that shy, incredulous grin that makes even the elves smile. Later, as they return to the Shire, Sam is the one who looks around most. Frodo stares inward, but Sam watches everything: the fences, the hills, the smell of barley and smoke. "It's smaller than I remember," he says softly, then adds, "But that's all right. So am I." One obscure note in Tolkien's unpublished letters mentions that Sam's return home was meant as a restoration of the ordinary made sacred. You see it play out in every detail. The way he kneels in his garden again, turning the soil with quiet reverence. The way he speaks less, laughs deeper, works slower. When he plants Galadriel's soil, the first thing to bloom is a malern tree, its silver bark gleaming under the sun, golden leaves shimmering like the light of lost ages. Neighbors whisper that magic has returned to the Shire, but Sam knows better. "It's not magic," he tells Rosie, holding their newborn daughter. "It's just good soil and a bit of love." She smiles, though she suspects it's both. Scholars have argued ever since. Was that tree a sign of divine grace or the last flicker of elvish power in Middle-earth? But Sam doesn't care for debates. He's too busy living the life he nearly lost. Years pass. The world grows quieter. Frodo leaves across the sea, and Sam stands on the docks long after the ship has vanished. "Well, I'm back," he says, and it's both farewell and benediction. There's a soft ache in his chest that never quite goes away, but he carries it lightly, like the memory of a song you hum when you can't remember the words. He tends his garden, raises his children, and tells them stories not about war or dragons, but about kindness, the kind that endures when everything else burns. "You don't need to be big to be brave," he tells Eleanor as they watch the stars. "Just true." In his later years, people call him Samwise the Brave, mayor of Michel Delving, friend of elves. He blushes every time. "I'm just Sam," he insists, though the light in his eyes says otherwise. When he walks at night, the malern leaves shimmer overhead, whispering like the laughter of faraway friends. Sometimes he looks toward the west, wondering if Frodo still remembers the sound of the Shire. "I hope he's resting," Sam murmurs, "and that someone's keeping his garden tidy." As the years fade and his steps slow, Sam still rises early to watch the sunrise over Bag End, the same way he once watched the fiery dawn from Mount Doom. The difference now is peace. He sits with a cup of tea, listening to the wind slide over grass, and the hum of bees becomes his music. The world doesn't need saving anymore. It just needs tending. And as night falls one final time, you can almost see him walking down the lane, lantern in hand, his silhouette fading into gold. The stars come out like old friends, and somewhere in the dark, the faint sound of a hobbit's laughter drifts through the air, steady, unremarkable, eternal. Now the campfire has burned low. The water in the river murmurs softly nearby. The night hums with the quiet rhythm of a world mended by small hands. You close your eyes and breathe it in. The smell of earth after rain, the shimmer of starlight over the Brandywine, the whisper of leaves against a sleeping window. The tale is done, but its warmth lingers. Samwise Gamgee's courage was never loud, never grand. It was the courage to love what was small and to carry that love through darkness until dawn. And in that way, perhaps, he did more than save Middle-earth. He reminded it how to live again.